You know that feeling when you go to the grocery store and you realize you're paying, I don't know, 50% more for eggs than you were a few years ago?
Oh, yeah.
You just kind of grit your teeth and you pay it because, well, you need eggs.
It's the universal experience of the 2020s, isn't it? The cost of living adjustment that never quite adjusts.
Right. So now imagine you run a business, your rent doubles, your electric bill spikes, your staff needs raises just to afford those same expensive eggs.
In a normal world, you'd raise your prices.
Exactly, you'd raise your prices to cover that. It's economics 101.
But in the world we're about to look at, economics 101 essentially breaks.
Because in this specific corner of medicine, allergy, and immunology, you can't just raise your prices. In fact, for some of the core work these doctors do, they're getting paid the exact same dollar amount they were 5 years ago.
It's that classic case of doing more for less.
But the stakes here aren't just about profit margins, are they? It's about whether independent medical practices can actually survive.
And we aren't just guessing at this. We have a massive data set to back it up.
This is the part that really blew my mind. We're looking at the Thought Leadership series that ModuleMD released in January of 2026. This isn't, a survey of 50 doctors.
No, this is hard data. It covers over 10 million claims.
10 million.
Filed between 2021 and 2025. I mean, that is a huge sample size.
Yeah.
It moves us past the anecdotal, my insurance is a pain stories, and gives us a sort of structural MRI of an entire medical specialty.
And what's the diagnosis?
They call it the margin squeeze. But frankly, it looks a lot more like a margin strangulation.
Wow.
And what we found in this report is that to survive this squeeze, allergists are having to fundamentally change what it means to be a doctor. They're pivoting.
Pivoting how?
From being medical providers to, it sounds crazy, but to being high-tech inventory managers and data scientists.
Okay, so let's get into the numbers then, because the gap here is, it's startling. We're looking at 2021 through 2025. We all lived through that inflation.
Right. And the report uses the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, as the baseline. That went up nearly 18% over those 5 years.
18%.
And that's just the floor of the cost of goods and services. Then you have healthcare-specific inflation, things like staffing, medical supplies, which rose about 10%.
Okay, so running the practice just got significantly more expensive. But here's the number that really confused me. Employer-sponsored insurance premiums. They jumped 26% in that same time.
They did.
So regular people and their bosses are paying way more into the system. The pot of money is getting bigger.
It is. The insurance carriers are collecting significantly more revenue per member.
So logically, some of that 26% increase should be trickling down to the doctors who are dealing with 18% inflation, right?
You would absolutely think so. But the data shows the complete opposite. The average reimbursement for core allergy services, it increased less than 5%.
Wait, hold on. Premiums are up 26%, costs are up 18%, and the doctor's pay is up 5%.
That is the math. If reimbursements had just tracked with a regular inflation, forget the premium hikes. Just keeping up with the cost of bread and milk doctors would be getting paid 12 to 15% more today.
So every time they see a patient, they're effectively earning less?
They're earning less real revenue than they did in 2021. And it's not just overhead, right? The actual stuff they use to treat patients got more expensive too.
The report mentioned that specifically.
Much more. It calls out extract costs. This is the raw material for allergy shots. That cost rose by almost 40%.
40%. So the raw materials are up 40%, but the paycheck for using them is flat. That sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy.
If they kept doing business as usual, it absolutely would be. And that leads to the first major revelation in this report.
Which is?
The traditional bread and butter of being an allergist,
Yeah.
Testing you for pollen allergies and giving you shots, that whole model is becoming a financial dead end.
Is it really that bad? I feel like everyone I know is getting allergy shots.
They are, but the economics of it are just broken. Look at the procedure codes. You have CPT 95004, which is skin testing, and 95165, which is making the allergy extract.
The foundations of the specialty.
Exactly. The reimbursement for these has seen zero growth. In some regions, carriers actually cut the rates.
So the very thing that defines the specialty is the thing that loses money.
Or at the very least, it's the thing that no longer keeps the lights on. Even pulmonary function tests, checking how well an asthma patient can breathe, they're under pressure too.
Okay, but these offices are still open. They haven't all boarded up the windows. So if the core work isn't paying the bills, What
Well,
is?
the basic office visit, just sitting and talking to the patient, codes like 99204-YANA, those did okay. They went up about 12 to 14%.
But inflation was 18%, so they're still losing money, just a little slower.
Exactly. You can't survive just by talking to patients faster. You need a structural shift. And this is where the ModuleMD data shows this massive pivot. The practices that are surviving aren't doing it by seeing more patients for hay fever. They're doing it by becoming infusion centers.
Ah, the new gold rush. I saw this in the outline biologics.
This is the lifeline. In 2021, biologics and infusions, they accounted for about 18% of revenue for these practices. You know, a nice side hustle, maybe.
Yeah.
By 2025, that number hit 35%.
It doubled.
It almost doubled. And for some of the top-performing clients in this data set, it's over 50%. Half their revenue is coming from these high-tech drugs like Xolair, Dupixent, and Tezspire.
Explain that shift to me, because I usually think of infusions as something you go to a hospital for. Why is the local allergist suddenly doing it?
Survival, mostly, but also opportunity. These drugs aren't just for severe asthma anymore. They're getting approved for chronic sinusitis, nasal polyps.
Things allergists see every day.
Right. So instead of writing a referral and sending that patient and all that revenue to a hospital, the practice brings the inventory in-house.
And they capture the fee. That makes sense.
It creates a massive boost. The data shows that practices that adopt these services see about 22% higher revenue per provider.
22%.
In a world of flat reimbursements, that 22% is the difference between being in the red and being in the black.
But there has to be a catch.
Yeah.
You can't just decide to start stocking thousands of dollars of drugs without some risk.
That is the inventory trap. These drugs are incredibly expensive to acquire. You have to buy them up front.
So if you drop a vial or the fridge breaks,
Or they expire before you use them, that is thousands of dollars directly out of your pocket.
and I'm guessing the insurance companies don't make it easy to get paid for them.
Never. You're dealing with prior authorizations where you have to prove the patient needs the drug before you can even give it.
And if you mess up the paperwork.
Or the insurance denies the claim after you've already bought and administered the drug, you're out the entire cost. You just paid to treat the patient.
So it's a high wire act. The revenue is higher, but the risk is terrifying compared to just doing skin pricks.
Correct. And to make matters even more complicated, you have biosimilars entering the market, cheaper generic versions of these drugs.
Which sounds great for cost.
But it disrupts the pricing models these practices have come to rely on. It's a constantly moving target.
It sounds like you need a degree in supply chain management just to run a clinic now.
You really do.
But let's say you figure all that out. You buy the right fridge, you hire the right staff. The report suggests that even then, you might be doomed just based on your zip code.
This was the Wild West section of the data.
Yeah.
The geographic variability is, it's practically insulting.
I saw the chart for California. Walk me through this, because I genuinely thought it was a typo.
It wasn't a typo. They looked at CPT code 95165. Again, that's just making the allergy shot fluid. A standard procedure.
Okay.
In California, one insurance payer pays $9.20 per unit. Another payer in the exact same state pays $19.
That's double. For the exact same medical service.
The exact same fluid, same vial, same doctor. The only difference is the insurance card in the patient's wallet.
How is that even functional? If I'm a doctor and I have a patient with bad insurance, I'm effectively losing money just by treating them.
You are. And that's why you see this disparity all across the country. The report shows these dispersion charts for Florida, New York, Texas. It's chaotic everywhere.
So if a practice doesn't know these numbers,
If they aren't looking at their contracts and realizing, hey, payer A is ripping us off, they will just bleed out slowly.
so the strategy has to be ruthless. You have to cut the bad payers or negotiate aggressively.
But you can't negotiate if you don't have the data.
Which brings us to the other side of the checkbook. The patient. We talked about premiums going up, but is the patient actually paying more at the counter?
They are, but it's hidden in the sheer size of the numbers. There's a statistic that looks stable, the 80-20 split.
Meaning insurance pays 80%, patient pays 20%.
Exactly, and that ratio hasn't really moved.
So that sounds like good news, right?
Well, it's a bit of an illusion, because 20% of a massive number is still a big number. The absolute dollar amount that patients are responsible for has risen about 40% since 2021.
Ouch. So even if the percentage is the same, the hit to the wallet is 40% harder.
Precisely. And you add in high-deductible health plans, where the patient pays the first, say, $5,000, and then you add copays for those expensive biologics we talked about.
So the patient is feeling the squeeze just as much as the doctor.
Absolutely. And that's probably why we're seeing this rise in cash pay services the report mentioned. Things like allergy drops and wellness testing.
It's an escape hatch.
It is. Both patients and doctors are just tired of the insurance game. So you offer sublingual immunotherapy allergy drops for a flat cash fee. The patient avoids the deductible nightmare, and the doctor gets immediate cash flow without fighting a claims adjuster. It's a win-win.
Okay, so let's put this all together. We have inflation crushing the margins. We have a pivot to high-risk, high-reward drugs. We have this geography lottery. If I'm running a practice, how do I actually survive this? The report identified some winners. What are they doing differently?
It comes down to two things, really: leverage and robots.
Leverage and robots. Okay, let's start with leverage. The report talks about the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, or HHI. Now, usually my eyes glaze over at econ terms, but this one seems critical.
Think of it like this. If you're a freelancer and you have one giant client that pays 80% of your income, you don't really have a business. You have a boss.
And if that client decides to pay you late or change the rules?
You starve. You have no leverage.
Right.
That is what HHI's measures: concentration.
And what did the report find?
A direct statistical link.
Yeah.
As a practice becomes more dependent on a single big insurance payer, their clean claim rate, the rate at which they get paid without a hassle, it drops.
Wait, really? You'd think being a loyal provider to a big insurance company would get you better treatment?
The data says the complete opposite. It makes you vulnerable. The payer knows you need them, so they can delay claims, they can audit you, they can enforce stricter rules.
So there's a red line.
The report calls it the 40% red flag. If one insurance company makes up more than 40% of your revenue, your performance metrics tank.
So the survival strategy is diversification.
Ruthless diversification. Keep your top payer under 25%. Keep your top 5 under 70%. If you have that balance, you can actually tell a bad payer to take a hike, and it won't kill your business. That's leverage.
And the second pillar was robots, or more accurately, I guess, AI.
This isn't just buzzword stuff. It's about that margin squeeze we started with. If staff costs are up 25%, you literally cannot afford to hire more people to fix these problems.
You have to automate.
Exactly. So they mentioned SkinSight AI. I looked this up. It's for reading the skin tests.
How does that work?
Instead of a nurse squinting at a ruler on a patient's arm, an AI analyzes the reaction. It standardizes the result. But more importantly, it creates a digital proof. If an insurance company tries to deny the claim, you have the data.
And NDRA for inventory.
That solves the dropped vial problem we talked about. It tracks those expensive biologics so you don't overorder or let things expire. It's doing the job of a supply chain manager for a fraction of the cost.
So the successful doctor of 2026 is basically running a logistics company that also happens to treat asthma.
That is the reality. And the most chilling part of the ModuleMD report is seeing what happens to the doctors who don't do this.
The gap.
The gap. They looked at revenue per provider. The median provider, the average doctor, is basically just treading water. Their income is flat, maybe even declining slightly. They're losing the race against inflation.
But the top performer.
They're accelerating away. The top quartile is now earning between $2.5 million and $2.76 million per provider.
That is a massive difference.
And it's widening. In 2021, the top earners made about 3 times what the average earner made. Now it's 3.65 times.
So the rich get richer.
Because they adapted. They embraced the biologics and the data game. The average practice is the one getting squeezed out of existence.
It really feels like we're watching a species extinction event for the old school doctor.
We are. The days of hanging a shingle, being a good clinician, and just trusting the system to pay you fairly, those days are over. The system is designed to squeeze you.
And if you don't have the business intelligence to push back, you close.
Right. Which leads to a much darker question about the future, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you need AI and inventory systems and complex contract negotiations just to survive, can a solo doctor actually do this anymore?
That is the big question. If the barrier to entry becomes this high,
We might be seeing the end of the independent practice entirely.
so what replaces it?
Consolidation. Private equity firms and massive hospital systems, they have the capital to buy the robots and manage the inventory.
So in 10 years, my allergist might just be a small cog in a massive corporate machine.
Or an algorithm managed by a hedge fund.
Yeah.
The efficiency will almost certainly be better. The HHI scores will be perfect. But the question is, when the margin squeeze is solved by a corporation, does the patient care get better? Or does the squeeze just get passed on to the patient in a different way?
That is a very sobering thought. We started by talking about the cost of eggs, and we ended up contemplating the industrialization of empathy.
It's all connected. The economics dictate the care.
Well, on that note, we have a lot to think about. A huge thanks to ModuleMD for this data. It's really rare to get a look under the hood like this. And thanks to you for listening to the deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves out there.